Thanks for coming out. Again, I'd like to thank Chrome for hosting my conversation series and with urban influencers. And Dave, I'd like to thank you for letting us chat with you for a minute. Cool. All right? Cool. All right, so let's get it going, man. So you grew up in New York City.
East New York.
Of East New York, of Puerto Rican heritage. And tell me a little bit about, growing up in New York.
Well, when I grew up, let's go back in time. We're talking in the 70s. New York was very different. New York as a city was broke. My family was broke. I grew up in East New York. We weren't really that broke. We were kind of sort of middle class, broke-ish. And there were, my neighborhood was kind of like Berlin after the war. It was a lot of burned down buildings where landlords used to burn the tops of the building to allow people to run out, and then they would collect the insurance on the building. And then they kind of left it like that for a long time. So, wow. Our playgrounds were these abandoned buildings and subway tunnels. Yeah. So, it was kind of, and it was sort of a dangerous place. It wasn't what, New York it is today. There was a lot of crime. We had the Son of Sam. We had all sorts of shit going on. So,
So East New York, so that, was it similar to the Bronx? Those buildings?
Very similar. Absolutely 100%, identical. How the South Bronx was, East New York looked exactly the same.
And that's Brooklyn. So, that's, obviously Mike Tyson came from there, but it was a heavy crime.
Yeah. There's a great documentary, if you ever want to see exactly what we were dealing with, is the 7-5. It was about the 75th precinct in East New York, and it was a corrupt police precinct where the cops were protecting drug dealers and so on and so forth, and you could see exactly. We were known as, we had the highest murder rate in the United States for 10 years. So yeah, it was pretty epic.
That's sad. That's sad, man. So when did you start riding bicycles?
I started riding bicycles. Let's see, Bullethead. My friend Bullethead he was the first one to get a BMX bike, and I think he got a Hutch. And then there was Harry and Edgar, and then they had these GT Pro Series. They were racing bikes, and then I got a bike in probably 1986. I got a Ross MX Times. It was the first chromoly bike Ross made.
Nice. On BMX?
BMX, yeah.
So it was like you in junior high? Or?
I was in junior high school, yeah.
Okay, and you do tricks? What?
I was definitely first trick that I learned was how to bunny hop. And then once I figured out how to bunny hop, then it was like curb endos and then backside 180s. And we did, back in the days, there was this big thing. McDonald's did this commercial and it had BMX in it, and then the kids did their, the foot jam in the tire, and then they shook hands. Mm-hmm. And then years later, I did a thing with Matt Hoffman for Vice Sports, and we reenacted that commercial. It's pretty cool.
Wow, that's dope. Is that on film?
It's on video, yeah. The internet owns it. The internet has everything.
It's out in the world.
The internet got it. Pick it up on the internet.
Yeah,
Vice Sports, Matt Hoffman, Crazy Dave, skid contest.
Dope.
Being too silly.
So when did your interest in art start?
I got started in art, I'm going to say it was late spring, early summer, 1980. I was 10 years old. And I remember going to school. My dad took me to school, and he had to go to work early. And he dropped me off at PS 159 on Pitkin Avenue in Glenmore. And I was in the schoolyard, and there was this tall white guy with like a denim jacket, like a vest jacket, and he was finishing a piece, and it was Is the Wiz. And I was sitting there, and I was just mesmerized by all the colors of this, and it was a blockbuster. It was wall-to-wall piece, and he said, I walked over to him, and he said 4 words that changed my entire life, the trajectory of my life. And I asked him, I said, did you do this? And he said, you can do this too. And I was like, what? And that was it. And I just immediately was like, I could remember everything about this piece. I could redraw it if I wanted to today. And he had the character with the goggle glasses, the Puerto Rican style hairdo, then the little glimmer of light, and it was like white. It was so amazing. And that changed my life because before that, everything was sports. You know, my dad played baseball and my brothers played baseball, and they wanted to be professional baseball players, but I was just I have ADD, and I can't really pay attention to things too long. So I'd be sitting in the outfield just kind of daydreaming, like, you know, what the fuck is going on? And they're like, yo, the fly ball! And I'm like, what? You know, like.
Yeah.
So when I found art, you know, after Is the Wiz said that, I was just like, holy shit. And then it just started slowly. Like, I would go to, you know, where we lived, we were very fortunate because we had Grant Avenue, and that's where the C layups were. And then we had over Linden Plaza, that's where the A's would line up. And we'd go down there and play manhunt and tag and all sorts of Ringo Levo, whatever the fuck you call it. And I would, you know, you find a can of paint. And then, you know, I remember running into Quick, Q-U-I-K, and Quick, he was doing a piece, and then he started kind of giving me information. He's like, yeah, son, he's like, you know, if you put green next to red with a little yellow and a white highlight, that shit is pops. And I was just, that's where I learned color theory.
Okay.
You know, it was the weird, like I had such a weird kind of upbringing when it comes to how colors line up next to each other. And it was basically, he was like fire engine red, Rust-Oleum next to a hunter green, you know, Red Devil with a, you know, and it was these colors, you know, and names, and that's how I basically got into it. And then the first thing I've ever painted was a refrigerator in my dad's basement. You know,
kidding.
Yeah, I wanted to paint something so bad, and I remember just stealing like tempera paint from school, and I had 5 colors. I had blue, white, yellow, red, and green. And I remember making this bullshit painting, and it was just complete chaos, but it was just this really abstract painting, and it was the first thing I've ever painted.
That's dope.
Is your mic working?
Yeah, it should be working.
Okay,
Yeah.
just checking.
But I hear these stories about early artists, or those street artists, and that they didn't buy their paint.
No,
they stole it.
You used to rack your paint. It was back in the days they called racking, and you would go out to Queens or Long Island, and there were dudes that were like professional rackers, and they would go out, and the best part about it was you would go with a team. So you would get like a white graffiti writer, and he would go in with his Puerto Rican or black friends, and they would go into the stores, right?
Okay.
They send in a decoy. And then the decoys would be dipping around and like touching the hammers and the fucking screwdrivers. And then you got your white friend that's in the back with his big pants, and he's just filling his jeans, and they're tied at the bottom, and you could steal like probably 5 cans per leg. And then you walk out, and then you go to 3 different hardware stores, and you got yourself a whole fucking arsenal of paint.
That is amazing. Just the store managers didn't see you guys. That's
well, they didn't see the white guy. They definitely saw the black kids,
guy. Yeah.
and they kept an eye on them.
Okay, that's slick. That is so slick, man. Okay, so before you became your own boss, what kind of jobs did you do? Did you do odd jobs? You know,
I had many odd jobs.
McDonald's,
I worked.
Paperboy.
I had a paper route in the '80s, and then I met my good friend Eli, who is standing right over there, that guy, and. In 1987, and Eli, he used to work at this nightclub called Mars, and then hired me to work with him and throw parties and promote and hand out flyers and have a rad good time. And then after that, Eli and Adam back there and Rodney started this small little company called Zoo York, and then they hired me as their first employee, and then the rest was history. And then after that, in 2002, we kind of all left. And then I started DQM. And then DQM became this big, phenomenal thing. And it was funny because the whole thing with DQM, you know, when I started that brand, you know, I bet Eli $1 that I could take the corniest name and turn it into something. And he gave me $1 for that, actually. Because he was like, it was like year 4 or 5, and he came back. I remember you were in LA and you came back with $1 in a GQ magazine and you said, here, because I know you don't read magazines. And inside it said the top 25 stores in America, and I was in there as number 3. So he gave me my $1.
Yeah, $1. That's cool. That's
and
so
it was
cool.
just like trading places, you know, Randolph, Mortimer.
Yeah, you jump right into DQM. But I had some more stuff before I jumped into that. So dealing with the art and the street art days, you had a graffiti name, right?
I did.
Did you bomb trains? Did you?
I used
did you
to.
run into other street artists?
I was a black book artist or black book bomber. I would take tags once in a while. My first tag I used to write was zine, Z-E-I-N, right? And then there was a guy, his name was David, and he wrote Z-E-N, and it was too close. And then one day David Zen confronted me, and then we had to fight. Now back then, you know, there were rules to this shit.
Okay.
Like I couldn't have, my name was too close to his name, and he was already writing that, and he already had ups. So for me to come out of nowhere and just start writing zine, and he had saw it around, and I was definitely not as talented as he was. I had a weak, shaky hand style. I was too close to the wall, I had mad drips, and it made him look bad. So he confronted me, and then we had to fight, and I fought him on Belmont and Crescent, and I got my ass beat. And I learned a lesson there, because the lesson was, you know, you can't knock somebody's style. If somebody's already doing something, you can't come too close to what they're doing. You got to come up with your own original thing. And so I lost that tag. And I would just write dumb bullshit in you know, here and there. And then in the 90s, in the late 80s, when we were in the meatpacking district, just for fun, I used to draw the stupid chicken leg because it looked like a penis. And I would write, I boned your moms. And there was so many transvestites in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was funny as hell. And it was just like a stupid joke between myself and no one, you know, Eli once in a while laughed at it or whatever. And as it wasn't really meant to be anything big or anything. It was just a silly joke. I literally was like making fun of myself. And I used to ship them out to customers. And I would be like, oh my God, this is so funny. I boned your moms. And then one time, this customer got upset because the lady who owned the skate shop had her sons working there, right?
Yeah.
Now, this lady was sleeping with the kids.
No shit.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So then this box shows up from Zoo York and it says, I boned your moms. And she was like, who the fuck just, you know, because she got outed, but I didn't know she was doing this.
Okay.
So she immediately returned the order and we were like, what the fuck is wrong with this lady? And then we found out the backstory that she was actually sleeping with the skaters. So yeah, you never know what's going to happen with these silly little jokes.
Right. So before you jump into the Zoo York, right? Because Zoo York was more than a skate brand, right?
Zoo York was everything.
Yeah. So now, what was your relationship with Shut? Because Shut was there before Zoo York, and were you running around with? Well, were you hanging with Harold Hunter at that time too, when Shut was around?
So back in 1986, we used to come out to the Brooklyn Banks and ride a little bit, and my friend Jim Himko, he used to skate and ride BMX. And he used to get boards from Shut. And they were all whack. Like back then, y'all niggas had whack crazy boards. They were all fucking warped, you know, and they were cut, all janky, real janky. But they were but it was Shut. It was like the first New York City thing. And they had the office right around the corner on Mott Street. The first Shut office was on Mott Street, and next door, Sonic Youth and the Beasties used to perform there or practice there. That was their practice studio.
Oh, sure.
And right next door was Shut, and it was Bruno and Rodney, and then you see a bunch of the guys. Like every once in a while, you see Sheffy or some Jeff Pang or so Jim Himko used to go and get his boards from the office.
Okay.
And that's how I got to know who Rodney was. And then I would see them at Washington Square Park because that was the hangout, and we'd all ride the Three Tits. That's what they called it back then. There was these 3 mounds that are on the west southwest corner, and now it's all AstroTurf. We would ride these things, and it was like our own version of a ghetto skate park. But it's kind of sucked for skating because it was kind of soft, but it was really good for BMX.
So yeah, I was going to ask you because those guys were skating. Were you BMXing, hanging out with them, or you were skating as well?
The thing about it was back in the '80s, there was no segregation in the sport. It was like, hey, you ride, I ride. You got a bike, you got a skateboard. Who cares? Okay. We all rode. It didn't really matter. Nobody was better than the other, and there wasn't really that much animosity. The animosity came later when BMXers got pegs, and then pegs started fucking up ledges, and then skaters were like, these dudes suck, and that's why they kind of separated. That was the whole thing. When the pegs and grinding came out, that's what fucked up the whole thing, the relationship between bikers and skaters.
Okay. All right, so going back to New York, you were the first marketing guy there, and like I mentioned earlier, New York was more than skating. So could you delve into how New York was this bigger concept than skating, because you was in marketing, so you had to go in all the directions. And the name came actually reference a graffiti team, right?
That's right. So, okay, let's start back. Let's go back in time. There's a guy named Ali, lived uptown. He had a magazine or a zine called the New York Times, and he had a zoo crew team, right, that skated, and it was Puppethead, Bopple, who else am I missing? Andy Kessler, and these guys were the Zoo Crew skate team, and they also had graffiti writers, Zephyr, Futura, who else is in that? Hayes. So all those dudes hung out together, and they were back in 1977, or 79, right? 78?
There was some serious
names. Yes, between 77 and 79. So that was a magazine, right? So let's fast forward to 1986, Shut did a board in honoring those guys because those were the guys that influenced Shut, right? So then after that, when Shut went out of business and New York was starting, Rodney went to Ali and was like, hey, I'd like to keep the legacy of New York alive. And we're going to start this company, and we want to call it New York, and blah, blah, blah. And Ali gave the blessing to start New York.
Rest in peace.
And that's how it all came about. So then when we got involved, me, Rodney, Adam, Eli, Jeff Pang, and the whole crew, we basically did the same formula because we were everything. It was white, black, Puerto Rican kids, it was all of us. It was exactly what New York is, a little bit of everything. And that's why the brand was so successful, because we never cared about what anybody else did. All we cared about is what we do. And we were like, we're going to tell the world how we look at skateboarding. And skateboarding is everything. It could be bike messenger, it could be holding onto a cab, it could be whatever. Music, everything, art, and that's what New York is. It's everything. So it was one of the things, and it kind of like spawned this whole universe of you could be talented and do whatever you want.
No, that's deep. And so your relationship with Harold Hunter. Now, was you at New York when they had skate maps?
Oh yeah, totally.
Because that was an amazing show. I used to.
I was never on the show.
I love that show.
That was with the skate team with Jeff Pang and Harold, and me and Harold was really close, and I love Harold to this day, and I could think about 1,000 things that Harold has done, and they're just insane and crazy, and but yeah, Skate Maps was a really cool show, and Carter Smith put it together with what was that girl's name? I forgot her name. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. But Carter Smith was the director of the show.
Yeah, no, it was nice. I really enjoyed that show. So now, you're in New York, and then you come up with this ideal of a sneaker boutique before sneaker boutiques were really around, right? Oh, you probably didn't call it a sneaker boutique, right?
No, I just called. It was just. It was.
Why? Let me.
It was really. It was. There was. Recon was the first store that was sort of a sneaker boutique, and then I came along. There was Recon. There was Supreme, obviously, Stussy, and myself, and then Clientele opened up. And we help Clientele because we would give them our dead stock, and then they resell it and stuff like that. But there wasn't a sneaker boutique, and my whole thing was, it was really kind of funny because when I made the store, I kind of was like, I'm gonna be the opposite of Supreme. I was like, my store is gonna be user friendly, touch everything, and it was kind of this love-hate relationship that I would, like, the kids would go to Supreme and get yelled at, and then they would come to my store and I'd console them, and then they'd be like, fuck those dudes, and I'd be like, yeah, fuck those dudes, here, buy a shirt, and they would buy a shirt, and it was the funniest thing, and I would just, even though we were all really good friends, I'd prank call Supreme. One time I prank called Supreme a few times pretending to be Ozzy Osbourne. And it was hilarious, and they thought I was Ozzy, and I was calling them and asking them for directions, and they were trying to give me directions on how to get there, but mind you, I'm on 3rd Street, being a dick, prank phone calling Supreme.
So were you into sneakers before you started
No.
DQM? Because, like, I grew up in Howard's Queens, so we were already deep into sneakers, Adidas, Puma.
Yeah,
Kids,
I mean,
all the stuff you grew up with.
I grew up, I was breakdancing, so of course, I had Puma Clydes. You had to have the shell toes as soon as Run DMC came out, so everybody went from Puma to shell toe. But I really didn't care too much about sneakers because I never could afford them, and I was more into my bike and skating a little bit, and all my money went to that. So when I got involved in sneakers, I just knew it as a commodity, cool thing to sell because I knew there were kids that were cooler than me that were into sneakers, and I was like, well, let me just try to sell them what they want. It wasn't really, about me. I would get a cool pair of sneakers and I'd just wear them and not even care and just go skate with them or ride my bike and they'd get all dirty and whatever, and I'd just be like, whatever. Or I'd give them to the homeless people across the street from the store and then watch kids freak out that they, this guy has like one of 500 pair of sneakers and then he's like, got some change, So to me, it was really, nothing. I really wasn't that really into them.
Interesting. I love the name David Quality Meats. You can't think. No, if I was thinking of a sneaker store, I would never think of calling it David Quality Meats. That's so original.
No, it's not that original. It's actually not that original. Because, and here we go, back to New York. Everything is full circle, remember? So back to New York. At the New York office at 425 West 13th Street, there is an actual butcher place called Dave's Quality Veal. So that is where the original name comes from. So from walking past that place, because when I worked at Mars with Eli, Mars was on 13th Street and West Side Highway. So I would walk past that. Then when New York opened, we were at 425 West 13th Street in the building where it said Dave's Quality Veal, which was owned by Gary. And that's a whole nother long story. But anyways, I walked past this thing for, so 1980. I started working at Mars in 1989, and then till 2002. So that's a long fucking time. So this thing was in my head, and I would walk past the thing, and I go, it'd be funny if I opened a store called Dave's Quality Veal, right, or Dave's Quality Meat, right? And sure enough, I was like, actually, it would be funny if I did that because nobody was doing that. Everybody was too busy being cool for school. You know what I mean? And I was like, I'm going to take a sideways approach at this and make this a little bit lighter and make it a little just less, because at the end of the day, a pair of sneakers are cool until you step into a pile of shit. And we all have done it.
Yeah.
And then they're not cool. And you're like, fuck! And your whole afternoon is ruined and everything sucks. But they're just tennis shoes or basketball shoes or, running shoes. And they're not that dope. They actually suck after a while because they blow out, and then you need a new pair, and it's just a thing. It's not that, you know.
I mean, I thought sneakers were. I mean, I won't say the way you said it, but I love sneakers. So I mean, like, I love sneakers. So I mean, that's interesting that you say it don't mean much, even though you had the boutique. So that's an interesting twist. But I'm having fun with it. I'm having fun with it. So what were some of your favorite collaborations at DQM? I mean, like, you did Converse, you did Nike.
I mean, my number one thing that most people know me for is the Bacon Air Max 90, and then the 95 and the Huarache. And they're wonderful. And when I made this thing, I literally was like, okay, here we go with another joke. Can I get people to wear baking on their feet? And I was like, this is either going to be a huge success or an awesome failure, but I'm still going to go for it.
Okay.
Because everybody at the time were making Air Force Ones and Dunks. And then here I come, Nike's like, would you like to make a shoe? You want to do a Dunk? And I was like, I'd like to make an Air Max 90. And they were like, what? And I was like, well, here's the deal. Because I'm going to be on my feet all day, I need a comfortable shoe, and I have a really bad arch support. And I got nerdy on them, and they were just like, okay, God, whatever. You want to make an Air Max 90? Great. Make an Air Max 90. And then I designed it based on hunger, because I was super hungry, because it was due on a Monday, and I was out partying all night on a Saturday, and then I went to my friend's house. I didn't even have a computer. Went to my friend's house who had a computer, and I had like a disc of the CAD, and I was like, dude, I gotta do this design. You gotta help me, but I gotta get something to eat. And then I was like, upload this file, and then I go, and this is back then when it took you a while to upload a file. So I break out and I go to the Key Food across the street, and I'm walking around. I'm like, I want an bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich. So I get eggs and I get bread and I get cheese. And then I look at this bacon, and I'm looking at the packs of bacon, and I'm like, now that's funny. And I was like, fuck. And then I just buy like 4 packs of bacon, right?
Yeah.
And then I come back and my friend's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I was like, I got an idea. I was like, bacon. The store's called Dave's Quality Meat. What if we made bacon? Look at the shoe. And then we took an Air Max 90. And when you look at them with all the pieces, it looks like bacon.
It does.
And I was like, this is gonna work. And then we put a plate full of bacon, raw bacon, and a Pantone book. And we were just like, okay, all right. But I was like, oh yeah, check it out. Well, look at how the bacon is dry in these certain spots. So if you look at the 48 pair of Hyper Strikes, on the toe cap, all of them are different because these dry spots. So what I made them do was stretch out the leather and then scuff them up randomly. So then when they cut the pieces, all of them are different. So everybody has a scuff mark on their shoe. And then lo and behold, it became a success. But that wasn't my favorite shoe.
Okay.
My favorite shoe that I designed was for Converse. I was part of the first 100 artists to do Project Red. And then I did a shoe where I took a Chuck Taylor and I cut it down to a mid. And because the project was called Project Red, I made a blue shoe, obviously, because I'm fucking stupid like that. But my whole thing was, this project was for about AIDS. So the shoe was too deep and nobody got it. And I was the only one to get it. And then years later, people caught on. But on the toe clips, it says Cure All. And then on the footbed of the shoe, so every time you step into the shoe, it'd make you think. It was a repeat print that said, what would you do for a cure? So it made people think about that. Then on the side, there was these 3 symbols. One symbol was a snake with a lion's head and the sun, and it was the Egyptian god called a Cornibius. And the Cornibius was the god of illness and diseases. And then the back symbol was the symbol of blood, and then the inside symbol was the Ankh, the symbol of life. So again, way too deep for people to even fucking go down this road. But it was my favorite shoe, and nobody got it. And then the thing was, I made the bottom clear, and then it was marbleized meat, so it looked like it went through a meat slicer. And again, it was so fucking conceptual and so fucking far over the top that nobody got it. And I loved it. And I'm the only one who loves them. And I don't know who has them, but whoever has them,
God bless.
God bless.
So that was very, very, very interesting. So before we leave the sneaker part, because you got a lot more here that I'm going to talk to you about, what do you think about this whole resale part? And obviously that bacon sneaker, if you're trying to get it today, it's $3,000.
Yeah.
But what do you think about that?
I think it's awesome. I always when we were selling these shoes, and I would talk to kids that will wait online for 2 or 3 days, right? And I'm just like, okay, let's do the math. Say you get the shoe, you sell the shoe. The same amount of time that you spent, you could have gotten a job at minimum wage and made the same exact money, but you wasted your time doing this. And then I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? When I was their age, I was actually allowed to go to clubs.
Okay.
Because they didn't check for IDs. So this was the modern day club for the kid, because they weren't allowed. So they would be on these lines smoking weed, drinking beers, and that was their hangout.
Yeah.
So I had to readjust my thought process of why they did this. But I think it's pretty awesome. If I had a bunch of money and I was a sneakerhead, right?
Yes.
I know I could go to Flight Club and I could get anything I want.
Yes.
I don't have to wait online. I just go in there, walk in, give me those Jordans, give me that thing, whatever, and just walk in, walk out.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of these resale stores for the rich. And the kids who sell them, great, God bless, let them come up. It's a cool thing, and why not? I don't have any problems with it. I think it's wonderful.
Cool. So now I'm going to jump into one of my favorite events that you were the moderator on, and that was the Red Bull Mini Drone. I just loved the work that you did. It was so fun with you behind the mic. Tell me about how Red Bull approached you, and what was the concept of you being the host? Well,
they knew I rode BMX, and they just wanted somebody who was just crazy, I think, and I was totally down, and I love messengers, and I think that you guys that ride these messenger bikes, and I just was like, I want in on this. My friend worked there, and he kind of mentioned it, that they were doing this thing in this mini velodrome, and I was just like, what? And then he showed me pictures, and I was like, you guys need a host? And they were like, would you do it? And then I was like, yeah. And yeah, I just signed up, and I did it for the cash, really.
No kidding. No, I loved it, man. You was into it.
I was really into it. And it was great because it was like you saw people really riding this little mini velodrome, and then you had a good probability to get hurt. And I always like that. I'm into that. But that's what action sport is. There's a high probability somebody's getting hurt, and that's why you watch. It's the same thing with Evel Knievel. The only reason why people watched Evel Knievel was he might not make it.
Okay, that's right. So cool. So I know I'm gonna open up for Q&A at some point, but let me get into the art a little bit.
Sure.
What you're doing today. I mean, it's pretty nice. I like that Goya theme as one piece. I mean, it's some meaning there. Your heritage, you're not trying to make it like an Andy Warhol.
Well, actually,
but
I actually am trying to make it like an Andy Warhol. What my whole thing was when I made the first can, I was like, I'd like to do a Puerto Rican, I want to be Andre Wojando, like something really stupid. And I made the black beans because the black beans represent me. Here I am, I was the black sheep of the family, because I did art and I didn't play sports. And then I got into action sport skating and BMX, but there weren't really many black kids. It was a white sport, but then here's this black kid or Puerto Rican kid. So there again, I am the black bean. But then I made the product, and then I was like, this is kind of boring by itself. Mm-hmm. So then I asked my mom, what were all the products that she used?
Okay.
And then she gave me a list, and then I made sazon, adobo, sofrito. Thank you. Sofrito, saltine crackers, the whole gamut. I did 14 products, and then after I did the 14 products, I was like, now what do I do with this junk? So then I was like, okay, we need to reach out to Goya. So then we put our feelers out into the world. And then we found a guy who worked in finance at Goya who got us a meeting with the marketing director at Goya. So we walk over with all my prints and we're like, yo, I made all this stuff. And they were like, holy shit, this is crazy. We might want to sue you. And but this is really great.
Yeah.
And they were like, we've never seen anybody executed this well. How about, and then we were like, well, let's work together. And I got this crazy idea. I want to open up a bodega and sell my artwork and then sell cans and all this bullshit. And I need $30,000. And they were like, wait a minute. Okay, we'll do that with you. But we want you to design the float for the Puerto Rican Day Parade. And we're going to need some T-shirts. And then we're going to need some. And I was like, bet, I'll do it. So then I ended up designing the float for the Puerto Rican Day Parade. And I got to walk down the Fifth Avenue with my float. And then I took, all I really wanted to do was walk down Fifth Avenue, take a picture in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral, and then I literally went to my girlfriend, I was like, all right, I'm done. And I was like, let's go. And we hopped the fence and went home. Like, and the float just kept going, and we were like, all right, bye.
Yeah.
So
Lazy.
yeah, I was lazy. I was like, I'm not walking to 108th Street. I was like, what are you, fucking high? And Rosario was in the float behind me. It was hilarious. It was really, really, really funny. But
So
then,
go ahead.
So I started doing a lot of political messaging, silkscreen prints, where I have a new series that I don't know if it's on my website, but it might be. It's the United Deaths in America, where I did these prints of people who were killed either by mob or by police, the hands of the police, and I made them into stamps because the only way you could get on a stamp is if you're dead. And I think, like, my whole social consciousness about this whole series is, you know, we are living in an environment where young black men and women are being killed, and this isn't just happening. You know, the people that I put on these stamps go back as far as 1984. You know, with Michael Stewart, who was killed on 14th Street and First Avenue at the L train station. And then we got Michael Griffin, and then we got Yusuf Hawkins, and then we got Amadou Diallo, and then we got Deborah Danner, and then we got Eleanor Blumpers. And then, you know, so all these people were killed, and you know, we think about this now, like the millennials think about this now, and they're like, yo, Trayvon Martin, yo, son, Eric Garner. But no. This shit has been going on for a fucking long time, and this is me trying to make people aware that we can't forget about those people who were killed. So that's why I did this series, the United Deaths in America. And then I started doing a flag series where the people at Timbuktu, sorry, no offense, American Giant, asked me, because they're an American company, and they asked me to make a flag. So the first flag I did was a Black Power flag with a protest march in the background. And then I did a new flag for them, which was called Redacted America, where I took actual words from the Mueller report and I put it on this flag. So I'm always constantly trying to, like, you know, do these pieces that are socially conscious and make people think about things and talk about things, and not just the fluffy Mickey Mouse and you know, whatever.
No, that's deep. I mean, you have a meaning to the work, man. It's not just something you look at. You think about it, you know. Yeah. You think about
not
it.
Really.
So yeah, since you mentioned Timbuktu, that bag you did was pretty slick. I thought. I mean, like.
The brown
that brown bag series. So tell me about that. I mean, I'm saying, what's the concept? Is this like a lunch bag, but it's a backpack? But what is it? What's going on there? Well, and the material too.
Yeah, well, the whole thing was, again, me making jokes and being a little light when it comes to designing and making fashion or whatever. And basically, I was like, you know, here you have a bag company, and they make these tech bags, and I was like, the meeting was hilarious, and it was just like, I want to make the most simplest bag in the world. And they said, well, what's that? And I said, a brown paper bag. And they were like, what? And I was like, yes. But here's the deal. The brown paper bag turns into a backpack. And then it has to be made out of this Tyvek that's the same material like out of the FedEx bags.
Yeah.
But we got to make it waterproof. And then it has to have a cinch top on the bag. And then the bag could come out and be a secondary bag. And so it's 2 bags in 1 bag. And then I was like, then we got to make a lunch bag. But the lunch bag has to be a fanny pack. Or it could connect to your handlebars. And then they were just like, what? And then I was like, then I'm going to need a 12-ounce beer bag. Because the beer bag could hold your cell phone. And you could, I used to hate when I walked around with my beers and my beers would spill and my bag would get wet and drippy and then the bag would fall apart. If I had a bag that would hold my beer and keep it cold, and they were just like,
that's deep.
This dude is fucking
What's
crazy.
he talking about?
Let's just make the bags and get him out of here.
I love it. That's so sweet, man. Yeah. You made it too.
Yeah,
You made it too.
yeah. I'm kind of, we'll see.
Yeah. All right. So my
There's
last
the
question.
unk.
My last question is tell us about Our Vodka New York, and then I'll open it up for questions.
Okay, so now I'm doing this project, which is called Our New York Vodka. And this was kind of a weird thing that kind of fell into my lap. One day, my phone rang, and it was an unavailable number. And I picked up the phone, and it was some dude saying, hey, I work for a spirit company. And they kind of recruited me into being a partner and then opening the first distillery in Manhattan on 26th Street between 6th and 7th. Now, since Prohibition, thank you. And, I forgot that little part, but it was not easy. And, there were times when I was like, I want to give up. What am I doing here? But it was one of those things where you just got to stick it out, and you have to fucking, nothing gained comes without hard work. And, right now I'm putting in the legwork where, we thought we'd be fucking making money by now. I'm chilling with P. Diddy and Justin Timberlake on a boat, but unfortunately I'm not.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work, making a product that everybody can make. Not everybody can make it, but there's a lot of vodka around the city. And, our thing is we're making a local vodka, made by a local guy for locals. And, and I always say, why support local Texas when you could support local New York? And it's a good product. The funny thing is I don't drink.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did you drink vodka?
That's the really funny thing, and I talk about it so much and so highly of it, and I've never tasted it in my life. But
You're kidding me.
No.
They recruited you and you don't drink it. You don't put Coke in it or something like that?
Well, it's like a guy who designs, women's shoes or lingerie.
Oh.
You don't necessarily wear them. I mean, some guys do, but not necessarily. But it doesn't stop you from making it and designing it and selling it. So it's just it's a product. It could be those spinny widget things. I mean, I would never sell those, but it's a thing that I kind of believe in, and it's the same. For me, it's like what it embodies what Zoo York was about, and that's why. And again, everything in life is a circle. You end up where you started. And for me, this is another adaptation of Zoo York. And I'm just kind of keeping what I learned in the legacy of my friends alive. And it's via a bottle of vodka instead of a skateboard. And that's basically all I'm trying to do is just, you just do what you learned and keep it going. And
okay.
If you're having a good time, why not?
All right, that's cool. Thanks so much. So I'll open it up for questions. Right
This
here,
guy.
first.
No doubt, Dave. So you're a designer. You built up Zoo York.
I didn't build up Zoo York. That guy built up Zoo York.
Okay. All right. So Zoo York, I don't mean to be disrespectful, is one of many brands like that. There's so many brands nowadays. Everyone has a brand.
Oh, yeah.
But you're a designer.
I'm not a designer. I'm just an artist.
An artist.
That just so happened to be able to design certain things.
Okay. So as an artist, why does the business and the art, why does that always exist from your perception?
Well, if you're going to be an artist, eventually you got to figure out how to sell it. You got to make money, and most artists are terrible business people. That's why you got to have somebody who's a business guy. That's why Adam is standing right next to Eli. See, I have one of those too, and that's that woman right there with the beautiful, colorful hair tie. That's my business end. And you know, every artist has to have a business end, and you know, because we're visionaries. We dream about these crazy things, and then these people who are more business-like minded, they wheel us back in and they go, whoa, easy there, cowboy, you're going a little crazy. This is the reality. And the reality, when you get hit with the reality, it is what the reality is. And that's what it is. So, you know, you have to have the yin and the yang. You can't, I don't know, I mean, there aren't many artists that I know of that do both. Everybody has to have an agent.
Okay, anybody else back there?
Question?
Oh, still in tone.
Thank you, Dave, for sponsoring all my alley captions back in the day. That's all I get to. I mean,
Oh, you're welcome.
I've seen you for many years, like when I was at Char & Co. and also when I was plumbing and driving in the city. So just thanks, and like all the history you just told, like, damn, like I didn't know you was like that old school. You were hanging out with like Is the Wiz, like
Yeah,
so Blasters.
I'm gonna be 50 years old.
Word. I just turned 40, but like,
Look at
and like I mean, I learned a lot from like watching shit from you guys, like when I was still a teenager up in the Bronx, you know. And then going into bike messengering, and then meeting Kurt and Victor and all these other cats. And then when I was coming to Dave Quality Means, like, yo, like, we'd love to sponsor your alley cats. I thought it was like a beautiful thing for something so New York and to keep it New York. So thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Question, yeah.
Yes.
Hey,
Hi.
Hi. I love your work. I'm familiar with your work. My question is, coming up as an artist, like, did you know you even wanted to be an artist? What was your state of mind going down this path? Were you confident in knowing that things that came as from your instincts? Like, what was your mindset of, is this even gonna work? Am I doing the right thing?
I'm always a little doubtful about things, but I do have this I don't really care attitude. And, you know, we're always gonna have doubt. That's that's just human nature. As an artist, but if you put sprinkle a little I don't give a fuck, and you pedal towards the jump, and sometimes all you gotta do is just pedal to the jump and just jump and hold on, you get across. It's like Evel Knievel. You know, half the time I don't think he thought he was gonna make it, but sometimes he got over, and sometimes he crashed.
Very inspiring, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else out there?
Anyone?
Go right ahead.
Right here.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, like, we can see now, like, places like Barney's are going, like, bankrupt. So I guess we could say that retail in general is kind of transforming. I know it's like back in the days you were in retail, but what do you think? I mean, I feel like part of that is because people who are artists like you identify as aren't involved in that corporate part, and it's kind of disconnecting from the, like, consumers and things like that. But I wanted to know what your perspective is when it comes to, like, quote unquote, the decline of retail, or like going into e-commerce only,
Okay.
things like that.
I think the one thing that has to attribute to this is the rent's too damn high. You know, ain't nothing going on but the rent. And the more and more these landlords get greedy and they take away these retail stores. Actually, my girlfriend brought up a really good point. We were talking about bodegas and regular stores, right? And I'll circle back to what you were saying. But there should be some sort of grandfather clause for people who own these old stores, that the city subsidizes these people to help them stay in business. Because, you know, right on the corner, there used to be the Dominican grocery store, no longer there. Right across the street, there was a bodega, not there. You know, so the fabric of our neighborhoods get changed constantly because these landlords get greedier and greedier and greedier, and then there are more influx of big business and big box stores, and they change the fabric of the neighborhood, and the neighborhoods get more vanilla and everything. The beauty about the online shopping experience is that there are a ton of people that are impulse buyers, and they, they're going through their feed, they see something, they go, oh shit, and if it's the right number, you're like, $24? Yo, I got that. Bang, 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 send. And that works really well. And, a guy like yourself doing these small business, you could kind of come up and build your business slowly, and you don't need the box store, you don't need Macy's, you don't need to pay the high rent. You could do this on your own. It's just a matter of getting in the algorithm of more and more people and figuring out how that works. Now that's a little bit above my pay grade. I'm not really that nerdy enough to figure this out, but it's all about getting in the algorithm. And if you make something cool enough, there's so many people, the likelihood that 10 people see this thing, you probably get 2 sales out of it. You know what I'm saying? And if you get 2 sales for that, the thank you for fucking with us, people will be you know what I mean? Because they see that shit and you're like, oh shit, that shit is mad ill. What? It's a tote bag and a sweatshirt? Oh shit, which one? I'm gonna get one of them. Boom. And the impulse buy is what people do. I'm a big time impulse buyer. I'm like, I got to run it past my girl all the time. Yeah. I'm like, honey, do I need this gadget? And I always need some wacky gadget that's like gonna make my life a whole lot better. I'm like, it slices, it dices, and it does. And it cuts a steel can, So yeah, the impulse buy is going to save little guys like you who are starting to come up. So yeah.
Sweet. Any more out there?
Any more questions? Another one.
Oh, one more.
Okay, adding to what he said, seeing that e-commerce is on the rise and that physical retail spaces, they're becoming less and less in demand. And as a small business owner, do you think it'd be stupid to still aspire to opening up in a physical store?
It's hard to say.
With that, do you think if, say, someone who aspires to open up a physical business, if they were to up their CX, which is customer experience, like say interactive stores that say shit, a fucking store with a basketball court, you think that would attract more customers? Or my question is, do you think it's just not worth it?
Having a retail store instead, it's really draining. It will, you gotta have deep pockets that are gonna fund this thing because the store is gonna be a lead loss. And you gotta hope that your business is gonna be enough, you're gonna be selling enough product to help pay for the store. But the way the rents are going nowadays, it's almost impossible. I hate to be the guy to say that. I think that even if you have an experience store, do you charge for the experience? Are you, what's where are you gonna put the money? Where the register's not ringing, it's like almost impossible. Mike Millman wouldn't sign off on that.
You've had 2 retail operations, right?
Yeah.
You even had Dave's.
I had Dave's Warehouse,
which was a big space.
And that was a big space, and we kind of did it, and then until it became unviable, it wasn't making enough money. We were just making enough to pay the landlord, and I didn't like the landlord. And then later find out that Manafort had an apartment in that building. Just saying.
Wow.
Just saying.
Wow. In Chinatown.
In Chinatown, yes. They seized it.
Yeah. Oh, they seized it. Oh,
Yeah.
man, that's deep. So I guess, Dave, maybe 2 things. Maybe you can leave us with some wisdom for the young entrepreneurs out there. And do you have anything coming up? Maybe an art show or?
I got an art show if you guys are out in East Hampton. I'm gonna be. I got an art show in East Hampton.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, it's in Sag Harbor.
Oh, nice.
It's not East Hampton. You can take the jitney. It drops you off right across the street from the show. So yeah, I have that, and no, I don't.
That's going on now.
No, it's actually
when's it?
Labor Day weekend.
Oh, it's Labor Day weekend. Okay. It's going to be on your website?
No.
The link.
It'll be on my Instagram.
It'll be on your Instagram. Okay.
What is your Instagram handle?
Oh, my Instagram handle, if you want to follow me and see, 123 D Ortiz.
Yes. Yeah.
So you could watch and witness some of my nonsense and whatever the nutty things I'm up to with my girl and my dog.
No kidding. No kidding. Now, so some words of wisdom, and we're wrapping.
Words of wisdom. Pff, oh, Jesus. What could I say? Yeah. At the end of the day, you can only be yourself. And, you know, that's all you have. It's yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.